Hey, Bayek, it's me, Ian. And in today's video, I'm looking at this. This is The Third Man from 1949. Now, this is a film noir thriller. It's a British film, 99% on Rotten Tomatoes. Wow, that is high. Does it live up to that? Well, it is really a critically acclaimed film. It's an Oscar-winning film. It won an Oscar for the cinematography of Robert Krasker, considered really highly. It's always listed there as in the great films, in terms of British films, as perhaps the greatest British film. Does it live up to that hype? Well, let's have a look at it. It's 104 minutes long. The screenplay is by Graham Greene, yes, the wonderful, celebrated British author, Graham Greene. Now, he wrote a novella, which was a preliminary for the film's screenplay. We have three producers in this film, which is an interesting slant on it. We've got Alexander Corder, the legendary Alexander Corder, British European producer. Then we've got American involvement with David Selznick, and then we've got Carol Reed, a director, involved. The American side was needed because of getting the star in this film, one of the stars. Often they would belong to studios and they needed sort of permission to be able to use by directors. So that is an important part. It's interesting to mention that this film, the US version of it, which they weren't very happy with a lot of this, particularly the ending, and 11 minutes were actually cut from this film. Even though it was a massive box office success and it's got all this acclaim, that's just an interesting looking from an American angle at this film. It was distributed by British Lion Films. And it's directed, of course, by Carol Reed, who is a very acclaimed British director. Films stand out: Odd Man Out, 1947, The Fallen Idol, 1948, Our Man in Havana, 1959, which is a Graham Greene film, yes. Another one that they used from one of his novels. And then, I think in many ways he's noted for this film, which is very different from this. It's Oliver, the 1968 musical. Wow, and it's great. It is absolutely superb, but really is well known for that, if not is the most well-known film. And this one, yes. So both these films are picked out if you look at Carol Reed, The Third Man and Oliver Reed. Okay, now it was filmed. This is another important part. There were 6 weeks of filming in Vienna. Wow. And Vienna, this is a war-torn, post-war European capital. well, it was at the heart. It suffered a lot. You can see all the bombing, and it's also the city was under control by four of the powers: Britain, France, United States, and Russia. So we've got like the Cold War era starting to come in. It's a fascinating part. I think sometimes, in terms of, I'm interested in history, and I often think of the bombing of Germany and the devastation of Berlin, places like Dresden. But we forget that Austria, which had been forced into its union with Germany, which it was popular at the time, and of course it was Nazified, if you want to call it that. That Vienna did suffer a lot, and it's considered obviously one of the great grand historical European capitals in terms of architecture and culture. But it's very much in this film and is a very much part of this film. Now, as a filming ended, principal photography on the 11th of December 1948. There'd been 6 weeks of it. And then there was some studio work done in terms of, like, in the sewer scenes. They built some more of the sewer in the studio. Apparently, Orson Welles wasn't always that keen on some parts of the filming, but he did a certain amount because obviously sewers is not the nicest place to film in. The other important part of this film to mention before I get into the actors is the music. It's the zither, which is dominant. And you're thinking, zither? Yes, that's the sound you hear. It was quite unique. The music score was by Anton Karas. And of course, particularly the Harry Lime theme of this was quite a, if you want to call it, a hit record. Yes, it was a very popular tune. But the music is important part. It even has a bit of humour, kind of, which is reflected in the film. There is humour in often a very sort of dark film, which is interesting. Again, part of the direction. Now, let's get into the cast. Orson Welles plays Harry Lime. Orson Welles, well, he was well known in terms of a director. Citizen Kane, 1941, Macbeth, 1948, Othello, 1951. These are just a few of his films. Touch of Evil, of course, 1958. Kafka's The Trial, 1962. And those were sort of among some of his great films. He was also, in terms of his acting, Jane Eyre, 1943, The Lady from Shanghai, 1947, and a film that I really love is A Man for All Seasons, historical drama, 1966. He was in that, and also a lot of other popping up here and there in different roles. Yeah, that's Orson Welles. It's interesting because though I've put he's the star of the film, his presence is obviously very much throughout the whole film. But there's quite a build-up into actually when we see him. There's that anticipation. If you look overall, in actual screen presence of seeing him, it's not a massive amount. It's there obviously, but it's not a massive amount as you might have thought. Particularly as a film is concentrated on him. Then we've got the American star Joseph Cotton, who plays Holly Martins. Citizen Kane, he was in 1941, so there he is with Orson Welles. The Magnificent Ambersons, 1942. Gaslight, 1944. War film, Tora, 1970, which has popped up a few times. Then he was in the abominable Dr. Fives, Vincent Price film, 1971. Wonderful film. He was in Lady Frankenstein. Started to do some horror, you see. 1971. Sci-fi film, 1973, Soylent Green. Yes, and I love this title. Island of the Fishmen. Oh, yes, he was in that, which is 1979 Italian film. Oh, I love that. And he was in, his last film was The Survivor, 1981, which is an Australian horror film. Oh, wow. Yeah. And then we've got Alida Valli, who plays Anna Schmidt. And, wow, she is from going right back in her career, 1930s. She had a 70-year career. She's a very attractive actress as well. She adds a lot, I think, in this film. Even though it's not perhaps a typical glamour role in many ways for her. And her clothes, that they use, the costumes, is not particularly glamorous because it wouldn't be. But yet she shines. There's something about her. Very much, yes, there certainly is. Now, as I say, she was in over 100 films. An outstanding film that she appears in is Eyes Without a Face, 1960, which is a French horror film, and it's very impressive. She was in The Antichrist, 1974, Italian horror film. She was in, listen to this, Inferno, 1980, an Argento film. Wow. What can I say? And then we have got Trevor Howard, Major Colloway. That's who he plays. And Trevor Howard, such a reliable, wonderful actor, played certain roles he was typically in. I just mentioned these films. He really came to prominence. Brief Encounter, the romantic film 1945, which is a classic. It is without doubt an absolute classic. He was in Odette, 1950, which is a wartime classic as well. He was in Mutiny on the Bounty, 1962, where he plays Captain Bligh. And we have, of course, Marlon Brando, yes. Wow, in that film. And what a film. I really like it. It's one of my favourite versions. A lot of people may disagree on that, but I actually think it's a classic version. Von Ryan's Express. What a film. Frank Sinatra in that one, 1965. Battle of Britain. Well, everybody's in Battle of Britain. So many British actors, but he's in that, of course. Typical of his role. But a film that I really want to shout out about him, and I've reviewed this, is Ryan's Daughter. He was in that. He played a priest in that. It's fantastic. It's from 1970. What a role that was. And I'd just like to mention he was in Gandhi as well. The great Richard Attenborough film. What a career, Trevor Howard. There's so many. I've only scratched the surface. He was on TV as well, playing all sorts of things. What a career. Another actor I'd just like to point out who was in this is Bernard Lee. He plays Sergeant Payne. Bernard Lee, what a legend, because he played M in James Bond. 11 Bond films he played M. from 1962's Doctor No right through to Moonraker in 1979. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. So, what is this about? Well, it is, in fact, as I say, set in post-war, just after the war in Vienna. Holly Martins arrives in Vienna to accept a job with his friend Harry Lime. But he learns that he's dead. He's died. And then he starts to want to know a bit more about it. And he starts to investigate his death. And the plot starts to unfold. I may have given certain things away, but all is not what it seems. And we build that anticipation up about Harry Lime, the mysterious character that we start to learn a lot about. And Orson Welles, of course, brilliantly plays that part, and the anticipation of when we actually get the great reveal about him. And it's beautifully, the story, way it's put together. I absolutely love the story. You can't help but love this story. And what we learn is that we have a society that has been devastated, and Europe should now be, in terms of defeating the great evil of Nazism, we should be more looking for more an optimistic future, but that is not here. We've got the Cold War there. It's starting, the Cold War, really, because Vienna is divided up, as I say, into four areas running it. You've got the French, the English, the Americans, and the Russians. Tensions there. And it's quite the opposite. There is no optimism for the future. A war has been fought, but what has really happened for these people who live in these the heart of Europe? So don't forget, Vienna. What makes it interesting is say it was a very cultured center of Europe in terms of history and architecture, and here it is. It's bombed out, and it's amazing. You can see why the cinematography won, and the direction is just wow. Just all sorts. The black and white, some of the shots that are used, the camera angles, just amazing. The lines, the symmetry, the everything about it, and then put this in with some great acting performances, and you've got a great thing. And also you've got other things like the fact that it's a romance as well. There is the romance in that, and that is brilliant because of this actress Ali Davali, who plays Anna. Wow, she adds something special to this role, and the fact that you've got two men who've fallen in love with her, and her reaction, and the ending of this film. Wow, it's not what people wanted. In fact, in America, we can see that they weren't that happy about it at all. Even Graham Greene said he wasn't happy, but then when he saw the film, he realised why it was done. And that the scene at the end, and the way the camera is there, we see it. Oh, wow. So I can see why this is an acclaimed film. You can see why. It's interesting that this film has such an effect on people. People like Scorsese have talked about this film, how it influenced them. It got into culture, as I say, with the music. There was even a TV series spin-off about Harry Lime. He's such an interesting, enigmatic character. And that was played by Michael Rennie in the TV series from 1959 to 1965, which is quite a long time. I don't know whether in the TV series how they approached him as a character, because I think it's one thing you learn in this series is that Harry Lime was really an evil man of what he did, and that is made clear in this film. That is another shocking part. You may not see that straight away, but that's what's the brilliance of the film, what we learn about him. Amazing, but this film to be so influential, I say it's a romance as well. It's everything in there. I know I'm perhaps rambling on here a bit. Is it a masterpiece? Well, I think it's a film that you grow to love and more, and the more on repeated viewings. Therefore, at the moment, would I say it's my favourite? Would I say it's a masterpiece of British cinema? It could well be, but it's a film that I think I need to watch because a bit more, more repeated viewings. But, I still have my favourites. And do I rank it with them? I don't know. Yet. But I'm so pleased I've seen this film. It's like I'm discovering new films all the time, and this is one of those films that I'm so pleased. I'm very happy to have got this in my collection. Just before I go, I'll just show it. There it is. Now, the extras on this are fantastic. There is a really excellent documentary, which is really quite long. And then there's even more extras. Wow, the extras on here are amazing. And I think that is because the film deserves those extras, definitely. And the more people talk about it, the more you get, wow, yeah, I want to see it more. I want to get it. Things that you don't see perhaps on a first viewing, you'll see again and you'll understand the film more. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I love it because it is a historical film in terms of the history of film. Fascinating. Highly recommended. I better shut up now. I've gone on far too long, I noticed. But I just couldn't help it. I got really involved in this. But anyhow, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. We'll let you know when I put out these videos. And also, have a look at the playlist, see what else I do. If you like this particular video, please give it a like because it gets it out onto YouTube and hopefully more people will see it in the algorithms and all that business. And if you've got any comments, please put your comments down. I love to read your comments. I always reply to them. And buying it costs notes, so can't say fairer than that. So I better go. And all I gotta say is, I'll see thee again.